Think you know what goes on inside American prisons? Spoiler alert, you have no idea. From inmates fighting wildfires for pennies to billion-dollar companies cashing in on prison labor, this is the side of the justice system they don't show on TV. Buckle in. Because by the end of this video, you might just rethink everything you thought you knew about punishment, profit, and power in America. 1. At Hernando County Jail in Florida, inmates once had to pay $5 just to go outside. Yep, sunshine. That thing falling from the sky for free came with a price tag if you were locked up. Couldn't afford it? Too bad, stay inside and marinate in your own frustration. The public called it inhumane. I call it late-stage capitalism meets prison yard. Eventually, outrage shut it down, but for a while, fresh air was literally a luxury item. Imagine explaining that to someone outside. Yeah, I was broke. For oxygen. Bezos, watch out. You've got competition. 2. Over 2,500 people in the US are serving life without parole for crimes they committed as kids. We're talking teenagers, people who can't legally drink, vote, or even rent a car, permanently locked away with zero chance of redemption. It's a justice system that basically says, we tried you once and we're done forever. Good luck growing up between concrete walls. Forget second chances. Some of these kids don't even get a second decade. You have to wonder, what's the point of correctional facilities if the only correction is to erase their future? 3. US prisons are home to one of the weirdest economies you'll ever encounter. No cash allowed? No problem. Inmates hustle with ramen noodles, stamps, and even cans of mackerel, affectionately known as Max, as currency. Yep, fish equals money. Want a haircut? That'll be 2 tuna cans. Need protection? Pay up in soup packets. Wall Street quants, eat your heart out. These guys were innovating alternative currency before crypto bros were out of middle school. Honestly, if Bitcoin tanks, I'm investing in ramen stock. 4. Introducing Pruno, or as I like to call it, desperation juice. This DIY prison wine is crafted from old fruit, sugar, ketchup packets, and whatever's not nailed down, all lovingly fermented in, wait for it, plastic bags and toilets. It's banned for obvious reasons, like say poisoning people, but that hasn't stopped generations of inmates from cooking up this foul elixir. Picture a Napa Valley sommelier with a prison tattoo, offering tasting notes like hints of orange peel and regret. Cheers. 5. In a scene that belongs in a dystopian horror flick, pregnant inmates in some US states are shackled during childbirth. Imagine pushing a baby into the world with your ankles chained and wrists cuffed. Because hey, you might sprint off mid-contraction, right? Medical experts call it dangerous and dehumanizing, but several states cling to the practice like it's some sacred tradition. We're in the 21st century, folks, yet somehow parts of the system are still stuck in the Dark Ages. Maybe next they'll suggest medieval leeches for the mother's health. 6. Speaking up in prison isn't heroic, it's hazardous. Inmates who blow the whistle on abuse or corruption often pay a brutal price. Solitary confinement, loss of phone or visitation rights, or in some cases a beating that says, keep your mouth shut. So yeah, prison doesn't exactly come with an HR department. You'd think the system would want to fix itself, but apparently it's easier to silence the canary than clean the coal mine. Reformers love to talk about rehabilitation, but maybe start with letting people report abuse without ending up in a concrete shoebox. 7. Behind bars, even sports leagues thrive. Yes, actual inmate teams with jerseys and rivalries. From basketball and soccer to prison yard football, some facilities run full-on leagues that could rival your local rec center. On one hand, it's a great way to blow off steam and avoid stabbing each other over ramen. On the other, it's surreal to picture guys doing time for armed robbery yelling at refs over a foul. Somewhere, there's probably a lifer screaming, "That was holding, ref," like his parole depends on it. 8. Prison healthcare is so bad it makes medieval medicine look cutting edge. Inmates can wait weeks or months for care, if they get it at all. One tragic case saw a man die from a tooth infection because antibiotics were apparently too much to ask. Imagine dying of something your dentist could have fixed for $200 and a lecture on flossing. Calling prison healthcare a death sentence isn't hyperbole. It's just grim math. Let's face it, when a pack of mackerel has more value inside than your health, something's wildly broken. 9. Prison riots don't erupt over bad TV shows or cold dinners. They usually explode after years of horrific conditions. Take the 2018 South Carolina riot, one of the deadliest in decades, where 7 inmates died. Overcrowding, zero medical care, gangs running the show. It's less a correctional facility and more a powder keg. Imagine living every day on the edge, where even a wrong glance can get you stabbed. And the system's solution? Usually more lockdowns, which totally fixes the rage. Sure. 10. America's prisons are turning into nursing homes with bars. Elderly inmates are the fastest growing population, some over 80, hobbling through cell blocks with walkers and oxygen tanks. Many pose zero threat to anyone, unless you count the danger of stealing all the jello. Meanwhile, taxpayers shell out millions on healthcare and specialized care units. It raises the question, are we running a justice system or just a really aggressive retirement plan? 11. In California, prison firefighting programs train inmates to battle raging wildfires shoulder to shoulder with professionals for as little as $1 an hour. That's right, risking your life for pocket change, often without even the promise of a real firefighting job after release, thanks to criminal record restrictions. It's the ultimate bait and switch. We trust you to save lives but not to work for us when you're free. Meanwhile, taxpayers cheer for these heroes without realizing the system keeps them locked in a loop with no real second chances. Who needs dignity when you've got a fire hose and $2 a day, right? 12. Shock collars aren't just for unruly dogs. Some prisons slap them on inmates during transportation or court hearings. These devices deliver electric jolts if the wearer misbehaves, a word that can mean anything from standing wrong to speaking up. Critics, and let's be real, anyone with a conscience, call this legalized torture, but hey, it's all in the name of control. At what point did we decide that managing human beings meant zapping them like cattle? Spoiler alert, we never voted on it. 13. Imagine serving a life sentence for selling weed, while someone convicted of manslaughter walks free after a decade. Many U.S. inmates, especially non-violent drug offenders, are locked away for longer than some violent criminals. Thanks to harsh sentencing laws, minor offenses snowball into decades behind bars, creating a system that punishes badly but forgives rarely. It's like throwing a kid in the ocean for spilling a cup of water. You don't have to be a lawyer to see the math here doesn't add up. 14. As if prison weren't brutal enough, some states actually bill inmates for their own incarceration. That's right. You can rack up thousands in room and board debt while sitting in a cell, where you're banned from earning a real wage. It's a financial hamster wheel that traps people long after release, guaranteeing many leave prison poorer, not just in freedom but in bank balance. Who knew punishment came with an itemized invoice? 15. Think prison makes people better? Studies say the opposite. Harsh conditions actually increase the chances of reoffending. Locking people up in violent, dehumanizing environments doesn't teach them skills or heal trauma. It teaches survival, anger, and distrust. When inmates walk out, they're often more broken than when they walked in. It's like trying to fix a car by driving it off a cliff and hoping it lands in better shape. 16. Here's a jaw-dropper. About 10,000 people are arrested every single day in the US. That's enough to fill a small stadium every 24 hours. With that kind of volume, it's no wonder the system is overwhelmed. Courts backed up, jails crammed, and resources stretched so thin you could floss with them. It's hard to imagine we're solving crime when we're processing human beings like a factory assembly line. 17. The US prison system is quietly becoming a giant retirement home with bars. Over the past 2 decades, the number of inmates aged 55 and older has doubled. Picture it: oxygen tanks in the yard, walkers next to bunk beds, inmates lining up for meds instead of chow. As prisons scramble to handle aging populations, taxpayers foot a ballooning medical bill, all for people who, in many cases, pose zero public threat. We're not just locking people up for life, we're locking up their old age. 18. Prison labor is everywhere, and chances are you've touched it. From furniture and military gear to license plates and office supplies, U.S. inmates are cranking out products for mere pennies an hour. Major brands quietly benefit from this ultra-cheap workforce, turning prisons into sweatshops with barbed wire. Sure, the companies get their goods, the state gets its profits, and the inmates, they get a paycheck that wouldn't cover a gas station coffee. Next time you wonder why that chair was such a good deal, maybe ask who really built it. 19. Fun fact, the U.S. has more jails than colleges. In Texas, there are over twice as many lockups as campuses. That's right, you're statistically more likely to find a jail than a university in many parts of the country. What does that say about priorities? We've got a nation where bars come before books and cells beat out classrooms. Imagine if we put half as much effort into education as we do into incarceration. Maybe we'd be producing Nobel laureates instead of recidivism statistics. 20. Overcrowding in prisons turns human beings into sardines with worse hygiene. California's prison system, designed for 100,000 inmates, has jammed in over 150,000 at times. That's people crammed into hallways, sleeping on floors, or even bedding down in bathrooms. It's no shock that violence, disease, and mental health crises spread like wildfire. If you pack people like cargo, don't be surprised when they break. The real miracle is that anyone makes it out in one piece. 21. Want compliant inmates? Just medicate them into oblivion. In many prisons, heavy sedatives and psychiatric meds are handed out not necessarily for treatment, but to make inmates docile, drowsy, and less problematic. Basically, it's chemical handcuffs. Sure, the guards get peace and quiet, but the cost is a population of men and women stumbling through life half-conscious. Welcome to the world where managing people sometimes means unplugging their minds. 22. Meet Sean Hopwood, the bank robber turned Supreme Court lawyer. While doing time for armed robbery, Hopwood buried himself in legal books, eventually writing briefs so sharp they reached the U.S. Supreme Court. After 11 years behind bars, he walked out, became a lawyer, and later argued cases before the highest court in the land. Talk about a character arc. From orange jumpsuit to courtroom suit, he's proof that sometimes redemption comes with a law degree. 23. You might be wearing prison-made clothes and not even know it. Companies like Victoria's Secret and JCPenney have sold products stitched or assembled by inmates, everything from lingerie to uniforms. Meanwhile, the people doing the work often earn just cents on the dollar. Shouldn't the folks actually making the product see more than the crumbs? It's capitalism with a twist. The workforce can't quit, strike, or unionize because they're behind bars. 24. Here's a dark one. Some inmates are forced to sign away their legal rights. Under pressure or manipulation, prisoners are sometimes made to waive their right to sue the state or seek compensation for mistreatment. It's like handing your abuser a permission slip to keep going. The idea of justice starts to crack when the system can shield itself from accountability with one coerced signature. Call it paperwork oppression. And it's just as ugly as it sounds. 25. Prison is where mental illness goes to get worse, not better. With sky-high rates of depression, PTSD, and schizophrenia behind bars, you'd think treatment would be a priority. But nope. Many inmates get no help at all, tossed into cells instead of clinics. The result? A pressure cooker of untreated pain, often punished instead of healed. We've basically turned prisons into warehouses for the broken, then acted surprised when people shatter. That's not rehabilitation, that's state-sponsored neglect in a concrete box. 26. Want to break prison rules? Try reading too much. Yep, in some facilities, inmates are limited on how many books they can own, because obviously, paperbacks are a dire security threat. For prisoners, books can be the only escape from a brutal reality, but hoard too many and you're in trouble. Imagine telling someone, sorry, your thirst for knowledge is against regulations. In a place that needs minds opened the most, the system slams the door shut, with a thud of bureaucratic absurdity. 27. Even perfect behavior won't always save you from a life sentence. Many lifers are denied parole hearings altogether, no matter how much they've reformed. They could be running the prison library, mentoring other inmates, or single-handedly holding down the chaos. And it won't matter. The message? Change all you want, you're still invisible. It's less a justice system and more a cosmic joke. Hey, thanks for evolving, now rot in peace. 28. Snitch or suffer. That's the choice in some U.S. prisons. Inmates are often coerced into becoming informants, in exchange for better treatment or to avoid solitary. Some are even pushed to provide false testimony, turning survival into betrayal. This creates a toxic jungle of paranoia where nobody trusts anyone. Think Game of Thrones, but with cheaper wardrobes and higher stakes. And instead of a crown, the prize is maybe not getting locked in a cement closet for 23 hours a day. 29. For LGBTQ+ inmates, prison can be a death sentence without the executioner. Studies show they face astronomically higher rates of assault and abuse, yet requests for protective measures are often ignored or outright denied. Being queer behind bars can feel like being thrown into a shark tank and handed a paper straw as your only defense. It's neglect on a level that should spark outrage, but somehow keeps getting buried beneath indifference. 30. In the 2017 Lee Correctional Facility riot, 7 inmates died while guards waited over 4 hours to step in. That's not just a lapse. That's a system shrugging its shoulders at a massacre. The scene was described as a bloodbath, yet accountability was nowhere to be found. It's the kind of failure that should trigger resignations and investigations. But in the prison world, it barely made the news cycle. When human lives become background noise, we've officially hit moral bankruptcy. 31. Welcome to the Great American Understaffed Disaster Zone, otherwise known as prison. Many facilities operate with skeleton crews, creating an environment where tension simmers just below the surface, ready to explode. Fewer guards means slower responses, more violence, and a level of chaos that's one bad day away from disaster. It's like trying to babysit a volcano with a water pistol and hoping for the best. Hint: it doesn't end well. 32. Private prisons have turned punishment into a billion-dollar jackpot. With contracts that often guarantee 90% occupancy, states are literally fined if they don't keep cells full. That's right. When crime drops, somebody's profits tank, and the system scrambles to fill the gaps. Rehabilitation? Forget it. Freedom? Not great for the bottom line. We've officially commercialized human misery. Congratulations, America. You've monetized mass incarceration like it's a streaming service with mandatory subscriptions. 33. In women's prisons, hygiene isn't a right. It's a privilege rationed like contraband. Tampons and pads are often scarce or completely unavailable, leaving women to improvise with scraps of cloth or toilet paper. Unsurprisingly, this leads to infections, humiliation, and long-term health issues. It's medieval-level cruelty packaged in a modern facility. We've got a justice system that can track every movement by barcode, but can't manage a tampon dispenser. 34. Immigration detention centers are prisons in all but name, except with more kids behind bars. Every day, over 30,000 people are locked up, often without legal help and in conditions that wouldn't pass inspection at a roadside motel. Overcrowding, abuse, inadequate food. This is the land of the free on a discount human rights package. We love to brag about liberty. But for many, the welcome mat ends at the razor wire. 35. Solitary on death row isn't just a punishment. It's psychological warfare. Some prisoners spend decades in tiny cells, with no human contact and no end in sight. Studies show it breaks the mind, often permanently. Picture this: 4 walls, no conversation, no touch, no sun, for 40 years. It's less justice and more slow-motion erasure. We're not just sentencing people to death, we're erasing them while they're still breathing. 36. The 3 strikes law. Because what's a functioning justice system without a baseball metaphor? Under this rule, you can land a life sentence after 3 felonies, even if the last one was stealing a pizza. That's right, life behind bars, because you couldn't resist shoplifting. The system's logic? Stack up bad choices, and we're done with you. Forever. It's a legal hammer dropped with the precision of a toddler smashing Legos. 37. Welcome to the Angola Prison Rodeo. where inmates risk their lives for a few bucks in a cheering crowd. Imagine bull riding, calf chasing, and chaos. Except the riders are prisoners with more grit than gear. It's a surreal mashup of punishment and entertainment that could only exist in America. Who needs Netflix when you've got live-action felon rodeo? Somewhere, the line between justice and spectacle dissolved, and no one bothered to redraw it. 38. 1 in 100 inmates is wrongfully convicted. That's not just a statistic, that's a national scandal. These are people spending years, sometimes lifetimes, paying for crimes they didn't commit. All thanks to bad evidence, lying witnesses, or prosecutors more focused on wins than truth. We call it a justice system, but sometimes it's just a roulette wheel with handcuffs. 39. Want to talk to your loved one in prison? Get ready to pay through the nose. Private companies charge families up to $1 per minute for phone calls. That's $15 for 15 minutes just to say, "I miss you." It's not just communication, it's exploitation with a dial tone. When companies profit off basic human connection, you know the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. 40. Kevin Smith spent over 60 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Let that sink in. Convicted in 1953 for murders he had no part in, Smith watched the world evolve while trapped in a time capsule of concrete and steel. By the time his case was reviewed in 2021, he was released into a world of smartphones, electric cars, and a society that had long moved on without him. But here's the gut punch. What does freedom mean when nearly your entire life has been stolen? No amount of compensation or apology can rewind 6 decades. Justice delayed isn't just justice denied. It's a slow, methodical theft of a life. 41. The U.S. prison system isn't just flawed. It's racially loaded like a rigged game. Black Americans are incarcerated at 3 times the rate of white Americans, and in states like Wisconsin, 1 in 36 black adults is behind bars. Wrap your head around that. 1 in 36. This isn't a blip in the numbers, it's a structural earthquake shaking the idea of equal justice. We love to parade around words like fairness and reform, but these stats tell a blunt truth. The scales of justice are cracked, tilted, and have been stomping down on black communities for generations. 42. Fighting for your freedom behind bars sounds like a heroic movie plot, but in reality, many inmates can't even access their legal documents. In numerous U.S. prisons, inmates struggle to see their own case files or legal resources, making appeals or reviews nearly impossible. It's like locking someone in a maze, throwing away the map, and then blaming them for not finding the exit. This bureaucratic chokehold doesn't just delay justice. It slams the cell door shut on any hope of escape from wrongful convictions or unfair sentences. 43. Surprisingly, some prisons have programs where inmates care for pets, giving them dogs or cats to nurture. It might sound like a soft headline in a harsh environment, but these furry companions can do what the system often fails at: teaching empathy, patience, and responsibility. Studies have shown that caring for animals helps inmates reconnect with their humanity, rebuild trust, and even prepare for reintegration after release. In a world of punishment, a wagging tail or a gentle purr can be one of the few things pulling people back toward redemption. 44. In certain prisons, inmates are deliberately given shoes that are too big. And no, it's not a bizarre budget cut. Oversized shoes are a security measure designed to reduce theft, violence, and escape attempts. It's a strange, almost cartoonish solution, but it works. Shoes that flop around your feet are pretty useless for sprinting or hiding contraband. Still, it's hard not to see the absurdity. Instead of investing in real solutions, we slap on clown shoes and call it security. Welcome to the world's most depressing footwear policy. 45. Many female inmates are mothers, and their incarceration often tears families apart in brutal, unseen ways. When moms go to prison, their children are frequently placed in foster care, triggering cycles of separation, trauma, and generational damage. These mothers face a heart-wrenching dilemma. Try to maintain contact and risk burdening their children with stigma, or step back entirely and hope they're spared that pain. Meanwhile, the system offers little in the way of meaningful support. Just another quiet tragedy playing out behind cold gray walls. 46. The U.S. spends more on locking people up than lifting them up. Take New York. It shells out over $60,000 a year per inmate, but only $25,000 per college student. Let that simmer. We invest more in punishment than in potential. It's a system where bars come before books, and somehow we expect a better society to come out the other end. Maybe if we treated education like it mattered as much as incarceration, we wouldn't need to keep building bigger, shinier cages. 47. Many prisons squeeze money from inmates not just through labor, but through the commissary, where basic items like soap, toothpaste, and snacks are sold at jacked-up prices. Families often shell out hundreds just to keep their loved ones clean or fed decently. Imagine running a store where your customers can't leave and have no other options. That's not a business, it's a shakedown with a cash register. And we wonder why people leave prison broke and bitter. 48. Believe it or not, some inmates work in call centers, handling customer service for major corporations. They can't reveal they're behind bars, and they get paid pennies while the companies rake in millions. It's the ultimate customer service irony. Your call is important to us, but the person answering it is earning less than your coffee costs. This isn't just creative outsourcing. It's exploitation of a captive workforce dressed up as job training. 49. In the past 40 years, the U.S. prison population has exploded by 500%. Yet crime rates haven't dropped in any meaningful way. We've built more prisons, filled more cells, and spent billions, but safety hasn't magically appeared. Instead, we've turned into the world's incarceration capital. If that's not proof the system's broken, I don't know what is. When you keep throwing people into cages and the streets stay the same, maybe it's time to rethink the blueprint. So here we are. 49 brutal facts that pull the mask off the U.S. prison system. Now here's the real question. If you had the power to fix just one of these problems, where would you start? And which one do you secretly think will never change? Drop it in the comments and don't hold back. I want to know what you'd smash first. And if this blew your mind or made your blood boil, hit subscribe. We've got plenty more dark, weird, and unbelievable corners of America to explore. And you're not going to want to miss where we go next.